Imagine making a mistake so bad that it costs you tens of thousands of dollars. Well, I made that mistake. In this video, we're going to be talking about me and how I found 3 Mr. Golds. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Back in 2013, when Series 10 dropped, everybody wanted a new, hot, rare minifig, Mr. Gold. But what was Mr. Gold? Mr. Gold was a rare collectible minifig made to celebrate the 10th series of Series 10. What was so special about this minifig? It was a chrome gold minifig with only 5,000 made, and everybody wanted one, but barely anybody got one. Just picture finding 3. Well, that's what I did, and I'm the only one on the internet with proof. June 4th, 2013, one of my favorite YouTubers and my good friend, Just Too Good, dropped a video, Lego Mr. Gold unboxing. I remember hearing the happiness in his voice, and I'm like, well, I need to find a Mr. Gold. So that's what I did. I had my parents take me to a bunch of stores. Every single day, they would take me to 7 to 8 stores. My parents was glad I wanted to get out the house because I was very reclusive and would stay in the house compared to actually doing anything. So they knew that this motivated me to get up out of bed and go somewhere. So they took me to a bunch of places. The first Mr. Gold I found at Legoland Discovery Center in Schaumburg, Illinois. Back in the day, they used to have these huge tables full of Lego minifigs. Thousands of them. Now they don't really have those anymore, but they had thousands of minifigs. My little brother and I were feeling through a bunch of packs, and I got down to the last, let's say, 10. After that, I felt a hat. I was freaking out. I'm like, I feel a top hat. I started pacing around the store. I felt the staff. Oh my gosh. I found a Mr. Gold. Now there was a dilemma. I had no money. I was broke. So literally, I was pacing around with a Mr. Gold in my hand, freaking out. And everybody in the store started looking at me. They were all like, this guy found a Mr. Gold. Like, did you find Mr. Gold? Yeah, I found Mr. Gold. I was so happy. I made it clear. Everybody knew I found a Mr. Gold. About 30 minutes later, my dad shows up and I run to him and I'm like, hey, I got a Mr. Gold. He's like, you did? He was so happy for me. He gave me the money. We bought the Mr. Gold. And then he decided to take a photo of me and my little brother outside of Legoland Discovery Center. And that is how I found Mr. Gold, number 4,592. Okay, let's take a look back. Oh my God, get that photo off the screen. Get Smeagol off the screen, okay? But don't worry. That photo might have scared you. But what won't scare you is how I found my next Mr. Gold. A week later, my mother was at Chase Bank. We were sitting out in the car, and my little brother and I were bored. So we decided, let's go over to Walmart to look at some Lego sets. So we did. We ended up going to Walmart in Palatine, Illinois. While we journeyed to the Lego aisle, we saw something that we had not seen a lot. An end cap with some Series 10 minifigs. Now this had been the first time that I had seen minifigs at a Walmart before. So my little brother and I decided to start feeling through them. And again, I felt a top hat. And I felt a staff. And I'm like, I found a Mr. Gold. My little brother did not believe me that I could have got lucky 2 times. So I handed him the pack. He felt it. He said, you found a blanking Mr. Gold. I had to blank that out. You know, you guys don't like cuss words. He was so happy. We grabbed the pack and we paid for it. I had some money because my mother had given me money to go over to Whole Foods and get myself a snack. So I decided to use that money and pay for the minifig. Once I got back in the car, my mother was waiting for me and she was kind of upset. She's like, where were you guys? And I told her I'd found a second Mr. Gold. And she's like, that's crazy. That Mr. Gold was number 4,585. I don't know how long after this happened, but Brickshow decided to post a video talking about a guy who had found 2 Mr. Golds. And I'm like, wait a second, I found 2 also. So let's try to find 3 or 4 or 5. Well, I found a third one. I went back to Legoland Discovery Center a couple months later. I believe it was either a month or 2 later, but this was a little bit after I'd found the second one. This wasn't like a week later like the first and the second one. And I was feeling through some packs. I got down to my last 5. And I ended up finding another Mr. Gold. I remember talking to one of the employees, and I told her I had found 2. She's like, fingers crossed you find 3. And I'm like, yeah. And I did not actually expect to find 3. Like the first time, I didn't have money, so I had to wait for my mother to show up to give me some money when she was done shopping at Whole Foods. It's kind of funny, because I was talking to the lady before, and I told her that I had found 2 Mr. Golds, and she's like, really? And she was all happy. And she's like, fingers crossed you find a 3rd one. Well, I found a 3rd one, which was crazy. I remember once after I paid for it, she cut open the pack right in front of me. She's like, oh my goodness, you found a 3rd Mr. Gold. And it was amazing. I remember after that, I ended up having to take a photo. It was me, my little brother, and 2 of the kids that my mom was babysitting. So there's photo evidence of that time and the first time. I did not mention that at first, but yeah, there is photo evidence. Someone at Legoland Discovery Center in Chicago, Illinois, back in 2013, could probably validate my claims. They probably somewhere maybe still have the photos. I don't know if they do. I'd love to go one day and ask and see if they still have the photos. But that is how I found my last Mr. Gold, number 3,410. After finding 3 Mr. Golds, I was the only person that could prove that they had 3 Mr. Golds. Now you might look at this photo where it has 2 certificates and there's one without a certificate. You might be going, that's a fake. Well, I can tell you it's not. Back in the day, they weren't really making fake Mr. Golds. They weren't really a thing at the time when I had found some. If they were really off in the color scheme. Now there's a lot more realistic looking ones now, where sometimes it's harder to tell, but I can always spot a fake Mr. Gold, because I had 3. So, here's what happened. I ended up contacting the Brick Show. I used to idolize Jason from the Brick Show. I remember sending him an email and saying, hey, I found 3 Mr. Golds. Do you want to borrow one for review? And he never replied to me. But like a week later, he dropped a video that said, should I sell my Mr. Gold? And then he mentioned me at the end of the video. He didn't say me specifically. He said a fan said that they found 3 Mr. Golds and I would sell that. That's what he said. So I ended up starting to sell them. Now, like I mentioned before, one of them was missing its certificate, which was number 4,592. Now, what happened? When I had first found the first Mr. Gold, I ended up carrying the certificate everywhere. And it ended up going through the wash. So literally it was this crumpled up wet piece of paper. And I was super upset. But I'd already had 2 other Mr. Golds with the certificate. And luckily I'd filmed a video showing off the first Mr. Gold with the certificate. And even though the video is very blurry, you can tell that all the Mr. Golds have different numbers in their videos. The first Mr. Gold I had sold was number 3,410. Now, I remember listing it on eBay for $600, and nobody would buy it at that point. At that point, all the Mr. Golds were going for about $600, but those were unregistered. I had registered all my Mr. Golds under my name and different emails. Well, after that, I ended up lowering it down to $400, and somebody made an offer for $300. Well, 14-year-old me, because I sold these when I turned 14, I believe, $300 seemed amazing to me. So I ended up taking the $300 and sending off the Mr. Gold. Everything went smooth. The guy got his Mr. Gold, and he only paid $300 for it. $300 to me was amazing. It's crazy. It was $300 freaking dollars. I was very happy. I got to buy a lot of snacks and more Lego sets. I'm like, just for this minifig, even though Mr. Gold looks amazing, this is crazy. So what did I end up doing? I ended up selling a second one, which I ended up selling number 4,585. I sold that for $420, $450. I don't remember the exact amount I sold that one for. I remember going to the post office and my dad and I were talking about the value of the minifig, and the guy seemed very intrigued. But here's what happened. After I sent it out to the guy with proof and tracking, he claimed he never got it. He sent me a message saying that he had checked everywhere. He was looking outside of his apartment. He was looking everywhere and he could not find it, even though tracking had said it had arrived. So I'm pretty sure we got scammed. Now, he ended up filing an eBay claim that he had never got the product. So I was freaking out. I was about to lose money. But since I had proof, eBay decided to refund the guy his money and make me keep my money. Now, here's the thing. If Mr. Gold ever shows up on the internet number 4,585, I want you guys to report the listing, because that's basically stolen property. The guy lied and claimed he never got it. So, yeah. Last but not least, I had my first Mr. Gold that I had found, number 4,592, which I ended up selling back in 2016. It was sitting there with no certificate. It was still in the original bag. It was open up, right? I had to cut a little hole in it, taking it out to take photos, right? It was my first Mr. Gold. And it was sitting in a bag inside a jewelry box, and I decided, well, it's just sitting here. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Let me sell it. So I ended up selling it on eBay for $850, which I regret till this day. I remember my dad even offered to buy it off me. He's like, I know you're going to regret it in the future when you don't have it anymore. And I'm like, nah, I won't regret it. I'll eventually buy another one again, which I ended up doing, but there's more to that story in a bit. He offered me $700 to buy it off me. Well, this person offered me like $850, so I took that money, obviously. Now, here's what happened. I ended up shipping off to that person. The person sent me a message and said she wants it for a stocking stuffer for her 60-year-old son. Yeah, it was funny. After Googling the address, the house was worth $18 million. So I'm like, dang, some 60-year-old kid is going to be really happy right now. After putting it in its bubble mailer and sending it off, I felt like I lost a piece of me. I felt like I lost something that meant so much to me. I lost the first Mr. Gold that I found. It was heartbreaking, but I learned to cope with it. I bought a bunch of Lego sets and a bunch of snacks, and I was happy, but I was also really sad. I wish I would have listened to my family members when they told me not to sell it. 2 years later, I was on the internet looking for a Mr. Gold. I wanted back a Mr. Gold, and I saw one damaged for $600. Well, nobody was bidding on it because, one, it was missing the certificate, and two, it had scratches all over the back, and the back looks really bad with all the damage on the back. Well, one, people don't tend to believe things when they don't have a certificate of authentication. But I decided to take a chance on it. So I ended up buying it, but I only bought it for $485. I made him an offer and he accepted it because nobody else wanted it. A week later, it arrived at my house. Here's the thing about this Mr. Gold, though. It had no certificate, so I couldn't really prove it was real. Or could I? I remember inspecting the pieces. Everything seemed alright. There's a lot of damage on the back torso of the Mr. Gold. So I looked inside the hat, and I saw a 5. And I'm like, well, clearly, this is fake Lego. So I sent the seller a long message, and I said, you scammed me, and whatever. He's like, no, I didn't. He ended up sending me a photo of a Mr. Gold with a certificate, and inside the hat, it said 6. And I'm like, this is very interesting. After he sent me the photos, I knew 100% that this was an authentic Mr. Gold. That being said, it was disappointing because it has a lot of damage on the back. Now, years later, I ended up talking to someone, I'm not going to say who, and this person said that the numbers inside the hat were based on where they were chromed. So 5 might be in one factory, 6 might be in another factory. So that was an interesting tad bit of information. Years later, right now, if you look on eBay, the cheapest Mr. Gold is going for about $4,000. On average, they're going for about $5,000. Yeah, now I really regret selling my 3 Mr. Golds. $15,000 I could have had if I would have just sold them now. Sometimes you look back at life and you're like, what have I done? So that's why the title is named How I Lost Tens of Thousands of Dollars. Because I could have had $15,000 easily. And now I have a damaged Mr. Gold. I sold 3 Mr. Golds, next to nothing. And if these people want to sell it, they're going to be making a killing. But I'd love to hear your opinion on the story. Would you guys like more story times? I'm Brother from Another Brick. You guys are awesome, and well, have a great day.